Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Topping our newscast, Governor Kenneth Mapp delivered his first State of the Territory address Monday before the first session of the 31st legislature. The new chief executive painted a grim picture of the condition of the territory, saying things will get worse before they get better. But they will get better. News 2's Erica Parsons has the highlights from that address.
Critical is the word Governor Kenneth Mapp used to describe the state of the territory in his first address.
Our problems are great, and there are no easy fixes.
Governor Mapp outlined in detail the VI's fiscal plight that currently stands at an almost $92 million deficit and another $176 million not included in that number.
Our government is teetering on the brink of financial collapse. The new administration must begin to manage your affairs with a critical shortage of funds and obligations that far outpace revenues projected for the fiscal year 2015.
Mr. Mapp told listeners it will get worse, but things will improve if the territory builds financial stability. He outlined 6 initiatives to get the VI back on a path to fiscal recovery. 1, legislation to reorganize and consolidate the government. 2, to close or liquidate more than $50 million in open encumbrances. 3, collecting 40% of taxes owed to the Bureau of Internal Revenue that represents roughly $125 million. The 4th initiative calls for issuing property tax bills for this year and last year by this August. 5 is a plan to work with Delegate Stacey Plaskett to assist on the federal level by releasing residency restrictions when it comes to new investments and insurance. He also plans to aggressively seek federal grant funding.
Our 6th initiative to starve our financial collapse is to collect from Hess Oil all of the current monies that are due and owing to this territory.
The governor said he's willing to work with Jovensa's owners, but he announced that he filed suit Monday to seize the refinery's assets. Governor Mapp also reiterated in his address the need to implement a jobs plan to grow the economy. Those 1,000 jobs he promised in his campaign will be in the areas of revenue collection, law enforcement, health, and education. Erica Parsons, News 2.
Now, Governor Mapp did not touch on every government agency in Monday's address, but there were several in critical need. We'll bring you those on Wednesday's newscast. Meanwhile, senators, both freshmen and returning, were all ears as the governor laid out the state of the territory. The newly elected governor will be working a lot with the Senate in moving the territory forward. What do legislators think of the governor's first speech? News 2's April Knight has that story.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how do lawmakers rate the governor's State of the Territory address?
7.
An 8 or perhaps even a 9.
I'll give him an 8, 8.5.
A 7.5, 8.
I'll give him a 10.
8.8.
Senators say Governor Kenneth Mapp's first State of the Territory was not perfect, but it did give a realistic, if painful, view of where the Virgin Islands stand just after former Governor John D. Young handed them over to the new administration.
Very comprehensive. I know the situation was bad financially, but I had no idea it was that bad.
According to many senators, the governor hit some strong points.
The economy, I think that is what is most we're in a critical state.
Of course, healthcare, our seniors, education.
The role that you play in marketing the tourism product, and that is so important.
But in the hour-long speech, they said he also failed to discuss some critical issues.
I'm the chairman of Housing, Public Works and Waste Management Authority. He didn't touch much on those areas.
Corrections and fire, those are areas that personnel issues.
When we talked about health, there's a piece of the puzzle that we have always questioned as to why residents, citizens in the Virgin Islands don't qualify for supplemental security income.
There are varying opinions on how reachable the governor's goals are, especially in the territory's current fiscal condition.
I believe they are because they have to be. Governor Mapp is on the right track.
He's talking about 1,000 jobs in the first year. I don't know about that.
His commitment to continue hiring, well, that's all well and good. But again, where is the money coming from?
I would not expect him to come with all those answers today.
Most of the senators said they're looking forward to working with this governor, but they're anticipating a hard road ahead for both branches as they try to make the goals on paper a reality for Virgin Islanders. Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Other senators who shared their thoughts on the governor's address included Senators Samuel Sanes, Noel Francis, Kenneth Gittens, Clifford Graham, and Rocky Liburd. Now, among those present at the governor's speech were various non-Senate officials and heads of agencies. Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett spoke afterwards about how she and the governor are planning to work together. Meanwhile, WICO's CEO Hugo Hodge also responded to the governor's assessment of how WICO is doing in reducing energy costs for VI residents.
Actually, I didn't hear it as a get your act together type of command. I heard something that's along the lines of staying the course, because everything he talked about doing, we're doing already. We're moving towards propane. The reason that we're here right now is because we took the fastest route to get there. We'll continue, we'll stay the course. We've been committed to do so. Everybody's rates are down more than 30% since September of last year, beginning January 1 of this year. And we're going to continue and see the course, not only with the propane project, but everything else that's going on.
The governor and I have had several conversations since taking office. A regular assessment just for the two of us to set a level playing field about how we would be working together, creating transparencies and lines of communications. We've committed to talking to each other and sitting down monthly to have those discussions.
Meanwhile, here's an excerpt. Vice President Joe Biden welcomed leaders from around the Caribbean to the nation's capital Monday for that very first ever Caribbean Energy Summit. The meeting was a discussion about promoting a cleaner and greener environment. And Biden pointed to the VI as an example of what efforts can be taken.
Some people out there think that it can't be done in the Caribbean. They're dead wrong. They are dead wrong. Not only can it be done, it is being done right now with some of your neighbors. Look at what the U.S. Virgin Islands are doing. They're combining renewable energy with propane to lower costs and secure their supply, saving ratepayers 30% on electric bills, while at the same time reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Everybody's rates are down more than 30% since September of last year, beginning January 1 of this year. And we're going to continue and see the course, not only with the propane project, but everything else that's going on. So for WICO, it's been a great day. We started off today with the Vice President of the United States mentioning our project as the model for the region of things to do as far as diversifying your fuel. Then the governor mentioning the same project in support. So I found it as a model day for us. I think everybody that's working on this project should be proud.
So what did you think of the governor's assessment of the state of the territory? We asked a few residents on the streets of St. Thomas what they thought of the governor's address and their expectations of the new administration.
From what I read and from what I heard him say, I think he means good. But we have to leave it to be seen.
I watched the better part of the speech last night, and I know it was extensive in a lot of areas, but I didn't hear anything at all about housing, parks, recreation, especially, sports activities and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of pressing matters. I was glad to see him talk about the GERS and a lot of guys that are retired. I know a lot of guys that are retired that are still waiting around to see their money, and they've been waiting a long time, and they put in their 30, 35, whatever years, and they should be getting, treated better than they are.
Bueno, yo pienso que va a ser un buen gobierno.
Okay, well, keeping our eye on the economy, the New York Stock Exchange was open for business despite a blizzard in the Northeast. We'll have more on that later. Well, the Commerce Department says demand for big-ticket goods like cars and kitchen appliances fell by more than 3% in December. It could be a sign that businesses remain cautious about spending, even as the U.S. economy continues to improve. American Airlines says profits are soaring just 1 year after its big merger with U.S. Airways. The airline has seen its fuel bill cut by more than 17%. Still, there are no plans to pass those savings on to passengers in the way of cheaper ticket prices. Here's the New York Stock Exchange with our stock market watch. The Dow, Nasdaq, S&P all down. The Dow 290, Nasdaq 90, S&P 27. Coming up on News 2, other news of the day, the Quantum of the Seas cruised into the WICO dock on St. Thomas, along with many new passengers. A welcome celebration was held on board for its inaugural call to the VI. A A shooting victim has been identified as 21-year-old Ezekiah Joseph. Detectives on St. Thomas are investigating the incident that occurred on January 26 in the Hidden Valley Apartments. Officers were notified of shots fired and a man down about 6:15 p.m. There they found Ezekiah unresponsive near Building 21. He was transported to the Schneider Regional Medical Center. Detectives are asking anyone who knows anything about this fatal shooting to call them at 714-9833, extension 5618, 911, or Crime Stoppers USVI. That number is 1-800-222-TIBS. WICO's President Joseph Bushelti, VI Port Authority's Executive Director Carlton Dow, Governor, Lieutenant Governor Osbert Potter, and other VI dignitaries went on board to greet Captain Gus Anderson and the officers of the MV Quantum of the Seas. The Lieutenant Governor presented the ship a plaque and a Virgin Islands flag so it can fly the territory's emblem whenever it wants to return. The reception was held to commemorate her inaugural call to St. Thomas. Many others were on hand, such as WAPA's CEO Hugo Hodge, VI Taxi Association's Winston Parker, and tourism representatives. They were all given a tour of the ship. The maximum capacity is 4,905, and it includes 15 decks. Royal Caribbean introduced the Quantum of the Seas last year.
St. Thomas welcomes Quantum of the Seas, January 27, 2015. U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. John, St. Thomas.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
The Virgin Islands Energy Office is participating in a St. Croix Environmental Association program geared to second and fourth graders with lessons about how the use of energy affects the environment. Now, the first program was held January 27th at Sandy Point for second graders from St. Patrick's School in Frederiksted. The lesson specifically addresses how the burning of fossil fuels in vehicles and power plants emits CO2 in the atmosphere and how trees extract carbon apart from the atmosphere. More lessons are planned throughout the month of February. Assistant Secretary for the Insular Areas, Esther Kiana, has established a new climate change coordinator position in the Department of the Interior to help leaders of the U.S. insular areas plan and prepare for the impacts of climate change in their respective jurisdictions. Assistant Secretary Kiana says the people of the insular areas, both in the Pacific and the Caribbean, are increasingly vulnerable to climate change threats to their infrastructure and natural resources, including sea level rise, coral bleaching, and saltwater intrusion, all which impact quality of life. Now, interested applicants should have demonstrated experience in insular areas issues. The application period is open through Monday, February 9th, 2015. You can apply online at usajobs.com. The VI Port Authority is updating travelers of flight cancellations by major carriers that occurred as a result of the severe snowstorm affecting the East Coast. According to VIPA, United Airlines Flight 1484 outbound from St. Thomas to Newark is canceled until January 28th. JetBlue's outbound flight from St. Thomas to Boston was canceled on January 26th and 27th, Monday and Tuesday. It's expected to resume travel on Wednesday, January 28th. Passengers are reminded to contact their airlines regularly for updates. Meanwhile, more than 50 million people in the Northeast woke up this morning to see just how much snow the blizzard of 2015 left behind. For some, especially those in New York City and Philadelphia, it was not as bad as expected. Most roads and rails are now open against the Northeast. With the monster blizzard in the forecast, governors in the region imposed strict travel bans overnight. But in New York City, the storm did not pack the punch many expected. Cape Cod is under 18 inches of snow, and on Nantucket, wind gusts topped 70 miles an hour. Nantucket, by the way, has been hit particularly hard by power outages. The east end of Long Island was the hardest hit area in New York. Almost 2 feet of snow is on the ground in parts of Suffolk County. The state is sending additional equipment and personnel to get the area cleaned up. It is a snowy day for thousands of kids from Maine to New Jersey. More than 7,700 flights in and out of the Northeast were canceled, and many of them might not take off again until Wednesday. Be sure to stick around. Our News 2 weather forecast is coming up next.